Today really is all about how to build good habits. Now, habits are not just habits. They're something that is really, really important in our lives and creating the life that we would really like to lead. So before we get started, I'll just give you, for those of you that don't know me, I'll just give you a quick rundown of who I am. For those of you that maybe haven't met me before, I'm a business coach. I'm a professionally accredited coach with the International Coaching Federation, and I really specialise in business planning, and that's why habits are very close to my heart, because habits are really an integral part of planning for success. I published my book back in 2020, which is all around what is your plan for your life or your business. And I do a bit of motivational speaking, and I have had 20 years of being a triathlete and are honoured enough to have represented Australia a few times. And commitment is my middle name, because I've been married to my husband for over 30 years, actually over 35 years now. So I'm born and bred in Perth and have been married here for pretty much, a good part of over 35 years. So that's me in a snapshot. I've had my practice here for over 12 years, but have actually been coaching people either in sports or in business since I was 18, so for a very long time. So let's get started what we're doing today. So really, today is basically all about you. Today is about you learning, and today is about you understanding the science behind habits and why habits can work for you or they can actually work against you. So today is interactive. I really want you to be interacting. I'm going to be asking questions. I'm going to be asking you to think about things. And if you stick around to the end, for those that do stick around to the end, I'm going to be giving a free book, my book, of course, to those that stick around. If you have read my book, that's wonderful. You can have it as a gift to give to somebody who really needs it. So it's definitely interactive today, and I really want people to interact and make sure that they're actually going to get something out of this. There's no point in sitting on a webinar for an hour and not actually getting something out of this. You know, and one of my big, hairy, audacious goals is to be a millionaire of hearts, and that's humongous, touching 1 million people's lives, to be inspired to make their life better than before. And how do I do that? Just by one person at a time, by thinking each day, how can I make a difference in this person's life? So sometimes big goals, when we chomp them down and turn them into habits, they're actually not that bad. So let's get started and look at where did this information come from, or if you would like to have a bit more information, where will we go? Now, the two books that I found really, really instrumental in learning about habits are these two books. Atomic Habits by the lovely man James Clear. You might have seen some of his webinars, you might have seen some of his YouTubes. Absolutely awesome. He talks about atomic habits, basically regular practices that are done routinely that make life a lot easier for us, and that the compounding effort of those small habits can be life-changing. The other book, Slight Edge, Jeff Olson, again, it's a life-changing book. He talks about those really small things that are really easy to do, but they're also really easy not to do. So both of these books, if you haven't read them, I would highly recommend that you read them, because they can be instrumental in your success and going forward in implementing a lot of the things that we're going to be going through today. So I've got Renee here helping me with the chat, and I will hopefully have lots of you looking at, how you can actually utilise this in your context. So when we look at James Clear's book, he talks about atomic habits. So I love the word atomic habit, or the sentence atomic habit, because it's saying a very small, minute atom that has humongous amount of energy, and turning that into a habit becomes a very powerful routine that can actually become automated and change your life forever. Absolutely forever. So what I want people to think about, is when we're looking at your life, what atomic habits do you need to be looking at doing? So when we look at a habit and how we get a habit, the first thing we want to think about is saying, okay, how do we actually form behaviours? How does behaviour change form? So you're in this webinar, we're talking about habits and change, good habits, bad habits, but let's look at, okay, what are the layers of behavioural change? So when we look at behavioural change, there is actually 3 layers. Now, this is really important to understand. So we've got the outer layer, which is when we talk about outcome-based. So we're saying something like, maybe, I'd like to run a marathon, or I'd like to have a clean house, or I would like to be fit. We're talking about an outcome. So these are the 3 layers of behaviour change. Now, let's think about them in context to yourself. The middle one is the process. Okay, how do you go about doing this change that you're wanting to do in your life, whether it's about getting fit, whether it's about making better business habits, like checking in your finances regularly, or cash flow regularly, or having team meetings regularly. What's the process? And then the middle one is, what is the identity? So when we look at the 3 layers of behavioural change, often people start with the outcome. What do they want to actually change? But the thing is, the most powerful way to make the change is to actually start in the centre, which is your identity. So who is it that you would like to become? Who is the person that you would like to become? And then if you identify what is the identity of the person that you want to become, then you can look at what processes or habits you need to change, and then your outcomes will change. Now, this is a reverse loop, and this way you will get sustainable change because your whole identity will change. So I've got a question for everybody, and I want everyone to write in the chat. The first question is, what is, when we're looking at this, what is the identity? Or actually, let's think about it first of all as an outcome. What is the outcome that you would like to change in your life? Now, you can, when you look at identity, this is the person who you want to become. And I don't know if you've ever thought of habits related to identity, but there's a direct correlation between the two. So it's about looking and saying, okay, what is the outcome that I would like to have in my life that would like to be different? But instead of that, we're wanting to reverse back and say, what's the identity? What is the person that I would like to become? And then what's the process that we need to change to have a different outcome? So it's totally different. So basically, we choose our habits based on the outcome, generally not on the identity. But we need to look and say, okay, how do we change our identity? What is the identity that we would like to become? So, for example, somebody might say, I'd like to run a marathon, but that's just a marathon. Instead, we're saying, I would like to become a runner. So it's like, say, a book. Instead of saying, I'd like to read a book, we're looking at changing the identity and saying, no, I'd like to become a reader. So we're changing the identity of who we actually are. So just bear in mind, this is really important when we're looking at these 3 layers of behavioural change. And I wanted to bring it up at the beginning so that people would understand. So I like this, I suppose, quote. It's been quoted by many different people that really resonates how habits and identity are really closely linked. So, what's your thoughts? And they become your words. And what's your words? They become your actions. And what's your actions? They become your habits. What's your habits? They become your character. And what's your character? It becomes your destiny. So it's the identity that we have in our mind. It's who we think we are that shapes our habits and that shapes our behaviors. And so it's about thinking, you know, what is the thought that's going on in your head that's related to the identity of who you are that actually needs to be changed? What is it that you want to change? So my question in the next slide, when I look at the next one here, we're saying, okay, what is the thing that you want to change? What is it that you want to change in your life? Because when we look at the habits that we currently have, if we were just 1% better every day, as it says in this example, you were 1% better every day, look at the compounding difference. Look at the compounding interest. You're going to be 37.78 times better in a year. So if we take an example, say, of myself in my early 20s, every year I seem to be putting on a size. Every year I was putting on a size, and I got to my late 20s and I thought, this needs to change, because if I keep going in this trajectory, I'm just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So what we need to start doing is saying, okay, well, how can I be 1% better in the habits that are associated with our outcome every day, so that I change the actual path of my outcome? So the question that I'm asking is, okay, what is it that you would like to change? What is it that you would like to change in your life at the moment? And I want everyone to just, and I think, you know, when it comes to habits, don't have like lots and lots and lots of things you want to change. Just focus on one thing at a time, because that makes it much easier and much more doable. So when we're saying, you know, what will make my life better, what's the one thing that you would like to change? Is it that you would like to maybe, you know, look at learning more about finances and understanding your finances better? I mean, you know, the thing is, habits, they're a compound interest of self-improvements. That's what they are. They're a compound interest of self-improvements. Basically, habits are the same as money, and how money multiplies with compound interests. The thing about habits is they generally make no difference for one day, and they make no difference for 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. But those 1% changes over time make a massive difference, an absolute massive difference. So when I decided to make some slight changes in my diet and how I moved in my late 20s, when I realized I can't be going up a size every year because it was costing money with buying new clothes all the time. So when I got to size 16, 18, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have to stop having morning tea. I'm going to have to start looking at doing some activities. And I'll go into a little bit further how I started to change some of the behaviours that were really instrumental in changing that. So one of the things that's very powerful when you are changing your identity and changing your behaviours is we look at this here, synaptic pruning. So what is synaptic pruning? So synaptic pruning is all those neuron pathways that connect when a habit is really easy. So if we're used to doing a habit, there is this easy neuron pathways and there's no problem. But if anyone's tried to do a new habit, it's really, really hard. So the brain makes it really easy to do things that are our habits, and it prunes out, the synaptic pruning, the neuron pathways of habits that we don't need or things that we don't need to use. So if we're wanting to make a new habit, it's actually going to start off really hard. And then once we start to make those neuron pathways and make them into a habit, it actually becomes easy. So for anybody who's starting a new habit, yes, it's going to be difficult to start with. But once you've got those new neuron pathways, it's not going to be so hard. So you've just got to get that habit happening and then it's going to make it easier. But be aware, this is a biological change that leads to our skills development. And it's actually something that happens in our brains that we need to be aware of, so that we can create these new neuron pathways and not be so harsh on ourselves. So having that thought in mind of how we're neurologically wired, one of the easiest ways to start to change our identity with changing our behaviours and our new habits is to habit stack. Because if we've already got a stack, we've already got a habit that we do anyway, and then we have a new habit that we want to form, it makes those neuron pathways tricked, because we're already doing a habit. So we're just hopping into that groove because that groove already happens. So for an example, with myself, many years ago, over 30 years ago, my husband and I learned how to do meditation. We went to the Transcendental Meditation Centre and learned how to do it. My husband had been badly injured in an accident, and we decided to learn meditation for pain management for him. And I decided to do it as support for him. Now, that was really hard to do. 20 minutes of meditation in the morning. It was really, really hard. Now, my why was really big because I wanted to support him. But if somebody is trying to look at getting into the habit, say, of meditation, 1 minute is fine to start, or 2 minutes is fine to start. But how did I habit stack? So the way I habit stacked is that I didn't eat breakfast until I'd done meditation. So I ate breakfast every day, obviously, but I wasn't going to do it till I'd done my meditation. And 34 years later, that was still the case. And the funny thing is, I write it down at the beginning of every week. I write down my habits that I want to do. I put them in the time slot that I want to do them in, and I make sure that they always happen before I eat, because I eat every day, and that's a habit that happens anyway. So I meditate. Now, what's all the fuss about meditation? Why do people talk about it? And if you do meditation one day, you're not going to notice any difference. If you do it 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 10 days, 20, you probably won't notice any difference. But meditation over years makes a massive difference. I've even heard in some countries they have a reduction in health cover fees if someone is a regular meditator. So what it does is it creates this sense of ease and this clarity and a calmness. And with this world of busyness that we're in, always having that stress flight, or that fight or flight response, having that regular habit of meditating and pairing it with something that I do anyway, has made things a lot easier. So life is easier. So that 1%, every day didn't make any difference doing it, a few days, but when you do it over time, it's made a massive difference. So when we're looking at your habit that you're wanting to actually, a positive habit that you're wanting to do, we need to think about, okay, the easy way to trick our brain is to pick another habit that we're already doing, and we want to pair it with that. So, when I look at my notes here, we talk about 50% of our daily actions are done out of habit. So there's heaps of habits that you already do to make it easier for you to slot the good habits that you want to actually start to be part of your identity into the current habits that you're doing. And, Richard Branson says, one of his keys to success in life is turning up. And I've thought about that in preparing for this. And, I think turning up in the right places and turning up doing the right things, being the person you want to be. So if you want to be an entrepreneur with a successful business, or if you want to be someone with lots of energy, or if you want to be someone who's good at sleeping, or someone who has got vitality and lots of energy because of the good nutrition that you feed yourself, that's the person that you need to be turning up every day, doing the habits and the behaviours that people like that do. But it's up to you. It's your choice. You choose that identity and choose the behaviours and choose who you're going to be turning up to. and when you're going to be turning up to be that person and to do the things that those kind of people do. Does that make sense? Because if we've got all these habits we're already doing, we might as well slot habits that are related to the person we want to be into those existing habits that we've already got. So when we talk about habits and habit stacking, I want everyone to think about the existing habits that they have now, and I want everyone to pick one habit that's an existing habit and rate that habit. Is it a positive habit or a negative habit? And then I want you to think about what is the new habit that you can do instead of that existing habit. So, you know, for me, I used to, well, I'll tell you a horrible habit. When I was a young person in my late teens, I used to smoke, and I was always going to be a smoker. I tried to give up many times, and I just couldn't give up. So what happened is when I became pregnant, my identity didn't associate with being a smoker anymore. And, you know, in James Clear's book, he talks about someone and how they change their identity when someone says, you know, would you like a cigarette? The person who's changed their identity says, I'm not a smoker. No, thank you. The person who's hasn't changed their identity, they're just changing their outcome, said, no, thank you. I'm trying not to smoke. So you see, there's quite a bit of a difference there in their brain of what's going on. Now, when I got pregnant and when I was a mother, there was no problems with stopping smoking because I changed my identity. I had a friend who was a smoker, that was a mother, and all her baby's clothes stunk of cigarettes, and I didn't want that identity. So it was not difficult because the environment, the association, the identity, I changed. And that's what we can all do. So I want us to look at what's the existing habit. Is it a negative habit or a positive habit? And what's the new habit that we would like to do to change that habit? So we've got lots here. Be organised, stop eating chips. We've got heaps. Looking at getting the weight down. And we're looking also at not just the outcome, it's looking at being a person that has lots of energy, a person that has the fitness, that can do those activities that you want to do. So when we're picking these habits, the existing habit and the bad habit and the new habit that we want to do, we want to look at, okay, so how does it actually work? How can we change it? So there is theory behind it, and it's not very difficult once you understand the theory and the framework behind it. So if we're going to build a new habit, first of all, we need to have a cue. So we've got to make it obvious. So if it's a positive habit we're wanting to actually start, we've got to make it very obvious. If it's a bad habit we're wanting to change, we want to make it invisible. We want to change it altogether and say, okay, we don't want to see that. So as an example, when I was, you know, decided that I didn't want to put on, you know, a clothes size every year, I stopped having chocolate in the fridge for a very long time because I used to eat 3 blocks of family chocolate a week. So make it invisible. Don't have the food that you don't want to eat in the house. If I'm having a stressful week, I will not have any beer in the fridge unless it's alcohol-free beer, because I know it's so easy to just pick a beer out and have it. So get them invisible. Make the new habits very, very obvious. The second one is make them attractive or unattractive, like myself as the example with smoking. Make it easy. So the response, make it very easy to do, or make it really difficult to do. If it's a bad habit you're wanting to get out of, make it super difficult. And the last one is make it rewarding. Make it satisfying. Or if it's a bad habit, make it very, very unsatisfying. Make it really unsatisfying so that it's a huge put off for you to actually stop doing that habit. So what do they mean? So let's go into them a little bit deeper. So when we look at the cue, the first thing is the cue. So make it obvious or make it invisible. So when we're looking at the cue of make it obvious or make it invisible, plan in advance. it's really important to plan in advance of how you're actually going to do this. So if you're, like, for example, with me and my fitness, I plan the week out in advance always what training that I'm going to do, because it's so easy for me to just, you know, think, oh, I'll just sleep in today. So plan it in advance. And another way to make it happen, if you plan it in advance, so this is make it obvious, is I commit to other people, because then that's one of the other parts of it, make it fun, because you've paired it with having special time with people that you really like. Other things related to business or things like, say, team meetings. A lot of business owners that I work with, they forget to have their team meetings. Plan it in advance. Invite your team members, so that unless, you know, something out of all of our control happens, that it's already booked. You know, another thing, when we talk about make it obvious, I loved Scott Pape's book about, the Barefoot Investor. You know, he says wealth is a habit. Well, sure it is. Plan to check your budget versus actual every month. Put the meeting in, set up direct debits for savings. You know, wealth is definitely a habit, because it's something that you've got to actually work at creating. So we've got to make sure here, how can you make it obvious, your new habit? How can you plan ahead and have cues? Like, you know, in James's book, he talks about having bowls of fruit on the kitchen bench, so that instead of going for, you know, a biscuit or a cake or something, you'll go for an apple. If something that, you know, you would like to work on is having better nutrition. You know, and for myself, I don't have cakes or biscuits in the cupboard, because I know that would be easy for me to eat them. And my husband does, but his biscuits are his, because then they've got gluten in it and I can't have gluten. So I make sure I never have cakes or biscuits, because otherwise I would eat them. So I make the naughty ones invisible and the really healthy ones visible. And putting things like, if we're talking about habits, around things like, you know, my training exercise, when I had little kids, I would put it on the fridge so that it was really obvious and the kids could see it, and it was in my calendar. And that if I slept in, everyone would be going, hey, where were you this morning? Weren't you meant to be going swimming, or weren't you meant to be doing this? So that is obvious for everybody to see. So when we're looking at saying, you know, how can we actually increase the cues of making it obvious, writing a commitment's also a really essential part, that personal commitment to yourself. In James's book, Atomic Habits, he talks about a group of people that were looking at exercise, and you had one group here in a study group that were asked to track their exercise. The second group were basically asked to read material about exercise, and the third group were asked to actually write a commitment to themselves. And the funny thing is that the third group, 91% of them doubled their exercise, and the other two groups only did 38% of them did it. So I'll be going through that at the end of this webinar with everybody here. I want everyone to make their commitment, because that's a really powerful thing, to make that commitment to yourself, and share it with others as well. So make the cue very obvious, or make it very invisible. So thinking about the one thing that you would like to improve, if it's your wealth habit, if it's your fitness habit, if it's even relationship habits, you know, about spending quality time with people you like, or phone habits, you know, having detox from your phone, how can you make it obvious? You know, how can you make that obvious? What's some things that people have done or that have worked before, if they'd like to make it obvious? Someone here put they want to be able to read more. Now, that's a great habit that, you know, I've seen people be able to read more by putting, again, the time in their calendar, but also when they make their bed, putting a book on top of their pillow when they finish, so that in the evening when they come, the book is there. It's having that habit, the cue there, that's really, really obvious. So some people have said they have a plan, but they don't stick to it. Okay, it's obviously not clear enough, and it's not paired with a habit that you've already got. So that is a real key, I think, is pairing it with habits you've already got. So the next one here is make it attractive. Make it very attractive or very unattractive. So, for example, you know, I've had clients that have wanted to make the habit of cash flow projection part of their business identity, their identity of saying, I'm good with my financials. I've got a clear understanding of my financial projections. But when the pain got so great that they didn't understand what they were doing, they finally made that habit where every time they reconciled, they did their cash flow projection. And what happened is it was so attractive that habit, pairing it with the reconciling, they had to reconcile because you've got to do your BAS. And you've got your commitment. So they paired it with that habit they were already doing, but it became so attractive because they could see that they were getting that reward back from that tracking of the cash flow projection, and tracking and seeing that buffer of that bank account getting more and more and more. So it became very attractive to them. So looking at the habit that you want to do, how can you actually make it attractive? How can you make that craving attractive for yourself? For myself, I like the feeling of lots of energy. And so it's really attractive for me to get up and do exercise. I like the feeling of having our team meetings once a week and everyone being on the same page. So it's attractive because the feeling that you get afterwards is a feeling of happiness. It's a feeling of the synchronization between your behaviors and your identity. So it makes it so much easier. So the habits that you don't like, we need to make them very unattractive. And we need to look at how can we increase the craving for the new habits that you want to make. Pairing with friends is a really good one, or even clients, or even networking. Some people, if they're wanting to say do more exercise, have a walk with your team member. Go for a walk. Go and exercise with a friend, or a walk with, or catch up at the gym, or a pump class with a friend that you haven't seen for a long time, or pair it with something or someone that makes you happy, and it's just so much easier then. So the third one here is the response. So the response. So this is, you've got to make it easy, or if it's a bad habit, you've got to make it very, very difficult. So it's got to be very, very easy. So we've had some people start habits doing 1 or 2 minutes of checking in with their finances, of having a 5-minute start of day meeting with their team, if that's the habit they want to do, or of saying going for a 5-minute walk, or having every time they go to the toilet, go for a walk around. One of the things that I wanted to do was become an exerciser and become an early morning exerciser. For those of you that know me, you probably will find this hard to believe, but when I was young, when I had little kids, I used to sleep in every morning. I could never wake up out of bed. It was really hard for me to get out of bed. And I would have my head on the kitchen bench and I would say to David, I'm in a coma, I can't get up. And so once we went to Sydney, got back, 3 hours time difference, and I was wide awake at 5 o'clock. And so I went for a walk around the lake, and there was all these happy morning people, and I looked at them and I thought, I want to be one of them. I want to be one of those happy people that are exercising in the morning. That was the identity that I wanted to be. And so making it easy, I decided if I could do a time change from going from Perth to Sydney in summer, I could stay in that zone. So I did. So I made a commitment to myself because it was so easy to look at those happy people in the morning and go, I want to be one of them. And I just stayed that. Yes, it was challenging to start with, but I was so, I suppose, focused on that identity. And remember, I had some caring that I did as well. I wasn't allowed to eat until I'd done the meditation, and I was getting up at 5 o'clock. And I got to do that. My excuse for not exercising was I had little kids, so they weren't awake then. So What happened was I changed my identity and changed the behaviours that were linked with that identity, but made it easy and paired it with friends and paired it with other things that I was already doing. So it just made it something that I thought was never possible, actually possible. So make it easy. Whatever you have that you're wanting to change the habit, make it easy. Or if it's a bad one, make it very difficult. The last one here is have a reward. Make it really satisfying. Make it super satisfying, whatever it is that you, whatever habit that you would like to associate with your identity, whatever habit you want to change, make it satisfying so that you do change it. Or if it's a really bad habit, make it unsatisfying. You know, the feeling that we get when we've done something that we're really excited about needs to be rewarded. So whatever that reward is that's associated with that, make sure you choose that reward so that it's something that is reinforcing those neural pathways to be doing that habit again and again and again. So it's something that's going to be changing who we are and changing the behaviours and changing the way we think about ourselves. The 5 a.m. club, absolutely awesome. So many people have changed their lives that way. Huge amount of energy. It changes your whole day if you can get up at 5 o'clock and have your exercise, have your reward, have your energy up before you start the normal day that I used to start, when I'd get up at 8 o'clock and just have to hit the ground running, trying to get kids to school, trying to get to work, and it was just this, you know, mayhem. By changing that one habit, it changed my outlook on life and changed the identity on myself as well. So now when we look at these 4 things, and I've got a couple of examples to read you from the book, just so that it makes some sense in our head. So when we look at the first 2 cues, the first 2 out of the 4 phases that we look at when we want to make a habit, the first is cue, the second is a craving, the third is response, and the fourth is a reward. The first 2 are the problem phase, and the second 2 are the solution phase. So as an example, the cue, when the phone buzzes with a message, this is a simple one. The craving is you want to learn what's the content. The response, you grab your phone, you read your text. The reward, you're satisfied because you know what the message is. So nice and simple. Say for example here, the example of getting up early or getting up at all. The first cue is you wake up. The second cue, you want to be alert. Third cue, your response, the solution phase, you grab a cup of coffee. The reward is you feel satisfied because you've got the hit from the coffee. So that actual habit loop is in place in our brain all the time, every day, without us knowing about it. That cue, craving, response, reward is going on and on and on and on all day long. And we just don't even notice it. So what we're doing by what I wanted to do by sharing that framework and that context is to say, how can we use that loop to change our life for the better? So that we can actually say, okay, what areas do I want to change so that I can work out, okay, what is the cue that I need to change so that then I can be mindful of that cue. And then what is that craving that will be attracting me to doing that? So for example, you know, if we're talking about cash flow in business, people talk about it all the time. So we're talking about the cue. Okay, the cue might be when I do my reconciling. Okay, the craving is I want to have less stress around cash flow. Yes, okay. The response is every time we do a bank reconciliation, we update our cash flow projection as well. The reward is you will watch your money go up in the bank because you're focusing on something. Where basically your energy goes, you know, you will get success in that area, generally 10% more if you're focusing on that area. And you'll have clarity of where your finances are. Same, you know, if we're wanting to say look at, you know, maybe looking at fitness, something like that, The cue might be, you're wanting to, you get up in the morning. The craving is that you're wanting to feel healthy. So your solution is you catch up with the girl next door that wants to feel healthy as well, and you go for a walk. So the reward is that you're feeling energized, and you're also, the other reward is you're connecting with someone that is important to you. You might do that with a client, you might do that with a friend. So you can use this loop for whatever area that you're actually wanting to change. So the other thing which I think is really important to mention as well is your environment. Now, your environment is really important when we're looking at changing a habit, or we're looking to create a new habit. So the environment is instrumental in how that actually happens. So if you're wanting to be, say, a motivated entrepreneur, then start to have that environment with people who are like-minded, like yourself, and start to read material of people who are like-minded and listen to things that are like that. So we're wanting to set up systems in our life that support the identity of the type of person that we want to become. So as it says here in this slide, systems versus goals. Now, I'm a business coach. I talk about goals a lot, and I think goals are really important, but they're just part of it. The environment, your identity, and the system, or the habit of the system that you set up, is actually going to be changing your whole outcome of your life. A goal is generally just a point in time. And often, if anyone has achieved a goal, there's often a down after you've achieved that goal, because it's like, oh, what next? Sorry, I've changed the wrong slide. So the thing about systems versus goals is that often if people have a goal to, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do a 12-week challenge. And so they lose all this weight and they get really fit, they get into a habit of going to the gym with somebody, or they get into these great habits, then the 12 weeks over and all of a sudden they go back to where they were before. So they have this yo-yo effect. They haven't actually changed their identity. All they've done is just focus on one goal. So what we're wanting to look at is say, yes, I love goals because I look at them as little stepping stones, but it's the identity that you've got to change, and the system of your life, of whatever part of it you want to change, that needs to change, and focus on the identity of the person you'd like to become and the life you'd like to lead, not the goal. Because if you just focus on goals alone, you're just going to set yourself up for failure. So often people say, oh, I've got this goal to save up this money, and then they save the money, they blow it, and that habit of saving is gone. This system hasn't been set up properly. So what we want to make sure that we do is get the right system for the identity of the person that you would like to become. And then, yes, set some little goals along the way. They're like little stepping stones, or that, to me, they're like little rewards that you're on the right path. So it might be a goal is to, have a certain amount of cash flow in the bank. It might be to have, be at a certain fitness level on a beat test, or it might be to achieve a certain plan with your team. But these are just stepping stones to say that our system's working, and that the identity that we want to become is actually on the way to achieving it, if that makes sense. So when we talk about systems versus goals, what are some systems that you need to actually change that are actually going to help you to achieve the identity that you would like? So have you got goals that you've worked on before that haven't worked because you've got the goal and then you've reverted back afterwards and you've done that yo-yo? So if you've had that happen, let's not think about, okay, I'm not going to do that again. Let's think about, okay, how do I change the system to be ingrained in my neuron pathways to stay as part of my identity forever? So if you would like to stop the cash flow problem that you might have forever, it's the cash flow habits that need to be changed. It's the system around that that needs to be changed. So you might need to get a team member to help you track it once a week. Or if it's your fitness, you might need to write your fitness plan and have that system around that, and create that system so that it's going to be part of you forever. Does that? I hope I'm making sense. So basically, systems are the process that you put in place that help you achieve the identity that you actually want to actually achieve. And yes, you can tick off those goals. The thing is, when you think about, say, Olympians, they all have the same goal. They all want gold medal, don't they? But it's the system of how they train and the habits that they have that gets the gold medal, not the goal. So I want you to think about the systems that will need to be changed in your life for you to achieve the identity that will have some little goals along the way. Great. But it's really the systems in your life that need to change, because the thing is that all people generally, say all people in business, they have similar goals, don't they? They want to be successful. They want to have a profit on that bottom line. But does everyone have the same amount of profit on the bottom line? No, they don't. It's the business owners that have the better systems and the better habits that get the better results. Same, like, say, with running a marathon. You know, everyone who starts a marathon, they all have a different goal. They all have the same goal. They all want to finish the marathon, don't they? But it's a system of how they train. It's a system of how much sleep they get, the system of their nutrition that actually is instrumental in them actually achieving that goal. And, you know, I've seen people like, you know, I had some mentions of people there that wanted to have better organisation. And I've seen people say, right, that's it. I'm cleaning my office today, or I'm cleaning my house today. And they'll do it once. And they haven't changed their system. They haven't changed their habit. So what happens is within a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's a mess again. So there's no point. You need to change that system. So with myself, with my office, I don't have anything on my desk. That's my system. Is if I have paperwork, it goes in one pile, which very rarely do I have paperwork. But if I do, I've been to an event, it goes in one pile that I sort out once a week. But my desk has nothing on it, because that's my system, to be clear. Then I don't have a mess to clean up. Everything's electronic. So what is the system that is the problem with the habit that you're wanting to change that needs to change? So if there's something going on in your life that you can relate to, they're cleaning up the office or cleaning up the room, and then it reverts back, then you haven't changed the system. So is it the system of going to bed? Is it in sleeping better sleep? Is it the system of exercise? Is it the system of team meetings? What is it? Someone's just mentioned their desk is in a big mess. So what I'm wanting people to do before they finish, before we finish this webinar, is to have an implementation intention. So we've talked about some of the habits that you need to stop doing and some of the habits that you need to start doing. We've also looked at saying the easiest way to connect in with our neural pathways that we've already made is to connect in with an existing habit, because we have hundreds of habits that are going on all the time in the day, so that we can pair with that habit. So what I want everyone to think about is saying, okay, what is the behaviour that you are wanting to actually commit to? This is an implementation intention. And remember, with the study, the people who actually wrote this commitment down were 91% achieved double the results that they used to achieve. So what is the behaviour and the time and the location that you are actually going to start doing this actual habit that you need to start doing that's a positive habit? So I want people to share in the chat if they're comfortable with sharing, because just this alone is going to make a massive difference. So is it going to be television? Great one. I used to find, you know, I would start late watching TV and it was a waste of time. So once I got into the habit of saying, okay, 8:30 TV goes off, start to get to bed by 8:45, 9 o'clock, easy to get up at 5. And I can do a lot better things with the time early morning than I can for myself late at night watching trashy TV. So what is the implementation intention that you are going to do today coming out of this webinar? I really want you to take something away. So I want people to type in the chat box and write, I will, whatever the behaviour is, get up early, you know, eat 4 pieces of fruit a day, whatever it's going to be, have a 5-minute start of day meeting at this location and at this time. Might be I'm going to exercise, whatever your implementation intention is, just one. I will commit to reading more. Yep. So we want to say the time and the location that you're going to be doing it. 5 a.m. Yep. And the thing is, you know, if you write this commitment down, put it somewhere where people can see it, share it with people. This is an implementation intention. You're just increasing your chances dramatically. Great. We've got some people writing in. Would like to improve your golf. Okay. So we've got to say, okay, I will play golf at this time and this location once a month or once a week. So we need to be very specific. And that's the thing about good habits. The subconscious mind doesn't like vague. It likes very specific because then it's not difficult to do. The other thing is put it in your calendar. It's really important to put really big intentions in your calendar so that they'll give you reminders and so that your team can look in your calendar and be very clear of, okay, what is it that this person I work with is intending on doing at this time? Great. Absolutely awesome. We've got some really awesome ones there. So please write them down, organise, exercise clothes the night before. Absolutely brilliant. I always do that. I leave my clothes there so they're ready to go, so I don't have to think about where are my running shoes, where is my things. And, you know, getting other people to help you commit to them, it's so much easier, whether it's a work meeting commitment, whether it's a, you know, meditation commitment. The app that I use, Insight Time, it tells you when your friends are meditating at the same time, which is kind of fun. It's a free app. So it's just a really important one. Yes, put location in. You have to put location in. And that's why it's good to put in your calendar. So if you're going to say, I'm going to exercise here at this time at this place, your subconscious needs to have the details. And then if you put it in your calendar, write the commitment, whatever it is, then you have just increased your chances no end. 6 a.m. training, yep, in the diary, brilliant. Share it with your team, have reminders, set yourself up to pair with that habit, something that you're already doing anyway, and have the reward. Mine is breakfast. My oats, absolutely love it. I've got some great ones coming in here. Keep them coming in and write them down. So as this webinar comes to a close, you know, I suppose the thing for me, and I really, you know, I find doing these webinars quite nerve-wracking, and I just really hope I've got my message across. But for me, and the areas of my life that I'm really proud of tweaking or excelling have all come from habits. It took me 10 years to write my book. That was trying to get in the habit of writing all the time. I did it with a girlfriend. You know, getting involved in triathlon, the only reason I did was I wanted to have a group of positive people to change my environment. The friends that we had, they used to just get drunk all the time and smoke pot. So I changed my environment, got into the habit of getting fit and got into triathlon. And lo and behold, in my mid-30s, I represented Australia and had no idea I would get there from being a size 18 drinker smoker. So, you know, the habits for me are really close to my heart. and really instrumental in actually changing the outcome of your life and changing the identity of who you are, that can inspire so many other people to change their lives as well. So, you know, your identity emerges out of your habits, because that's what every action of your habits is a vote for the person that you want to become. So that every time you do that habit, it's telling yourself that that's the person that you want to become. So becoming the best version of yourself, it requires that continuous editing, the continuous upgrading of your beliefs, and continuous expanding of your identity. So we're a work in progress till the day we die. So it's up to us to be identifying, okay, what are the habits I need to be doing? What are the areas that I would like to change to improve? You know, some of the habits that I've created over the years, they've just been one habit each year, but they've been instrumental in changing the outcome of my life. When I read that Barefoot Investor, that changed, that wealth is a habit, just that one line totally changed saving patterns for me by setting them all up. You know, that tiny tweak of getting up at 5 in the morning changed outcome forever. Meditation, no eating until I've done my meditation and my exercise, changed my mindset forever. So tiny changes compounding over multiple times, it basically changes the person that you want to become, and it's up to you to decide what that is. And you have got the power. You can do that. You can certainly do it. So my gift to the people who've put up with me with trying to read my notes and watch the comments and do 1,000 things at once. And as I said, this is close to my heart, so I really wanted to share it. My gift to you is, if you go to my contact page on my website, put in your email address and your name and your address, I'm more than happy to send you a free proper paper copy of my book as a gift to say thank you for spending the time, and thank you for committing to be the best version of you that you can actually be. If you got some benefit out of this webinar, if you put some feedback on my website, I will donate $1 for every feedback that I get to Opportunity International, and they do microfunding for small businesses in third world, which is, again, it's a habit. It's about helping people in other countries to change their life for the better by investing in starting a small business. So if there's any questions, I've covered a lot. Feel free to email me, and my suggestions are to read Atomic Habits. Oh, you can't see it because I've got a green screen, and Jeff Olson's A Slight Edge book, because they have been amazing. So thank you very much, and I really hope you've taken something away, and I love all of the people's commitments. They've been awesome, and hopefully you can change your behaviours that will change your identity, that will change your outcomes instead of the reverse. So thank you.